Greetings, I'm John Phillips, and this is Up or Down. Should employers be able to check a job applicant's credit score? Does a Black Lives Matter book belong in middle schools? And Disney is planning a supercalifragilisticexpialidocious sequel to one of its most iconic films. All this and more will be judged with a thumbs up or a thumbs down by our panel. They are stand-up comic and PJ-TV Stephen Cruiser. And right next to him is the very fair-minded civil rights defense attorney and host of Courtroom 790 on Talk Radio 790 KABC in Los Angeles, Mr. Leo Terrell. As you can see, they have their thumbs ready to go, so let's get started. Our first topic takes us to Washington, D.C., where Senator Elizabeth Warren and Congressman Steve Cohen have penned an op-ed that calls for a ban on the practice of employers checking employees' credit histories. The op-ed piece, co-written by Warren, states, quote, "This is an issue of basic fairness. Americans should be able to compete for jobs on their merits, not on whether they have enough money to pay all their bills. Much of America, hardworking, bill-paying America, has damaged credit. It is wrong to shut them out of the job market," end quote. Many companies run background and credit checks on their potential employees when given permission by the applicant. Though 53% of companies said they don't perform background checks on employees, 87% of companies admitted to checking the credit status of job applicants for financial positions. Senator Warren argues that many Americans are still feeling the effects of the 2008 financial crisis and should not be judged based on their credit histories. So, Leo Terrell, should companies be able to do this?
As a lawyer, as an employment lawyer for numerous years, definitely. Look, employers have the right to check on the background potential applicants. This is nothing discriminatory. It's across the board. It's absolutely right. They have the right to do so. Elizabeth Warren is wrong. I don't even understand her logic behind it because she cannot dictate the standards for employers to determine who's the most qualified applicant. So the answer is, should they be allowed to? I'm sorry, thumbs down. I don't like the idea. No.
No, he said, should they be allowed to?
Oh, yes.
Wait, now you confused me.
No, you were right. You were right.
Everything I said is right and thumbs up.
Leo's right in that approach, but I will say this, that many of the people who desperately need work are the ones whose credit has taken the biggest hit. So there's a thing there that where she's right about the one thing. Having been one of those people whose credit took a hit in the 2008 financial crash, I know where she comes from. He's still right, though. Employers should be able to check out whatever they want. I mean, how crafty you want to get. I don't know that it's fair, but then I don't like adults talking about fairness because the real world isn't fair.
Well, here's the problem. You got government telling employers how to select their employees. This is fundamentally wrong. Government has no right, unless it's a legal standard that they're using. They're not. They're going to investigate the background of these employers. Government should stay out of the hands and minds of employers who are making personnel decisions.
My grandparents used to own a steakhouse here in Los Angeles. And one of the problems they always had is they had bartenders stealing cash because it was back in the old days when there were no credit cards. Everything was a cash transaction. And sometimes it went in the register, sometimes it didn't. They couldn't keep the bar. And the bars where you're supposed to make a ton of your money. They couldn't keep the bar from losing money because they'd go through bartenders that would just put it in their own pocket. If you could take a look and find out if they owe a lot of money, if they have an ex-wife that's got a huge, settlement against, whatever, if you could figure out if they're going to steal money or they're a likely candidate to steal money from you.
Well, and you'd like to think maybe the company will be looking at people based on their merits still anyway and won't use that too heavily, but there are some jobs where they're a lot more invasive than that. I mean, during my brief little stint in the corporate world when I got divorced, I got a financial services license, and the federal government goes up in all of your business when you do. I had a 2-week gap in my written history of my last 10 years of employment that they came back and they said, no, you need to fill in this. They're checking your credit, they're checking everything, and they're checking everything about your personal life. They're all up in everything. So it just happens. That's the way it is with some jobs.
But again, here's the problem. You're judging people on an individual basis. If I'm an employer, I've been an employer for 23, 24 years when I was running a law practice. You have the right to determine what makes the best qualified applicant. It's a personnel decision. Government telling me what I can and cannot check, as long as it's legal and they give the consent, what's the problem?
Would you hire a fat personal trainer?
If they meet the qualification I want, yes. But it seems sort of inconsistent with what I'm looking for. A fat personal trainer. it wouldn't be a good role model for me to hire that individual person unless they are amazingly talented, which I can't imagine.
Would you hire a fat personal trainer?
Not really, but you would hope in this situation that somebody could say in an interview. Let's not forget the interview still happens. This isn't just some cold person. You could say, look, I had a bad time in 2008, 2009. And then, if you'd want to go to work for somebody who would give that a decent look and say, okay, there was an anomaly.
I don't think I'd hire a controller who's bankrupt.
Okay, but if you were in the position to hire, then I respect that.
But I wouldn't care if a sales guy was bankrupt.
Okay, and that's why.
Morally or financially. That's kind of what you're looking for, is the morally bankrupt in a salesperson.
Now on to our second topic. Following on the heels of the Black Lives Matter movement, 2 women have written a new book that is targeted at middle school students. Duchess Harris, who's a prof of American Studies at Macalester College, and journalist Sue Bradford Edwards penned the book, which is called Black Lives Matter, how appropriate. According to Abdo Publishing, the book aims to relay historical facts about the shootings that touched off passionate protests. The work of the activists is to bring about a more just legal system and tensions in the United States that these events have brought to light. Rashad Turner, lead Black Lives Matter protester in St. Paul, thinks that the authors do not have the best intentions behind the book. He said, quote, "It's another hijacking of the movement, another scheme to exploit black lives for a few dollars," end quote. That's what he told the Huffington Post. He also confirmed that the book is not a product of the official Black Lives Matter movement. Others have expressed concern about the book being used in schools. Many argue that the book will encourage racism and is a topic that should be addressed in the privacy of one's home, not in schools, middle schools in particular. So, Leo, should this book be taught in middle schools?
Well, let me sit here and say I have several opinions on this. Yes, if there's a book called White Lives Matter, Brown Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, if it's just this particular book and no other book, I go down on this. I think it's insulting to say that this book is going to be targeted to middle schools. I'm a civil rights attorney. I find this offensive. We live in a colorblind society, and we're trying to infer that a particular ethnic group lives is more important than others. And I'm just bothered by this whole attempt to preference one group over another. If you put all lives matter in the book, fine. But if it's just black lives, no.
Cruiser?
This is why it bugs me. I kind of agree with the guy who was doing the interview with the Huffington Post. The Black Lives Matter movement, as named as such, is a relatively newish thing in America. It gained a lot of steam after the Ferguson thing, so it's like a year old. This smacks of opportunism, someone writing a book in a hurry to try to make some money. That's what it feels like here. It doesn't feel like their hearts are really in it. It's like, oh, we can capitalize on this. I don't know whether they hijacked it or not, because there are some people in the Black Lives Matter movement who have said, well, there are no official leaders of this movement. We're not set up that way. So I don't know that one person gets to speak more for the other, but this just smacks of this like somebody trying to crank out a book in a hurry for a buck. That's what it feels like.
How about this? Middle schools are not meant for college-level sociology courses. There's a time and a place to teach this stuff. There's a time and a place to have this debate. Middle school English classes are not.
But you can't discuss real life in college anymore, so you better get to them in middle school now.
But the whole concept of Black Lives Matter infers something that sends the wrong message. It sends a race message, and I'm bothered by that. As an African American, I'm bothered by it. All lives matter. So if there's going to be this book, fine. Let's just make sure all books of a different nature are also allowed to be in this a particular school or school district or class level.
This brings us to today's Facebook and Twitter question. We asked our viewers, do you think schools should teach students about the Black Lives Matter movement? 17% of you said yes, it should be taught, while 83% of you said it has no place in our school system.
They're correct.
Thank you all for participating, especially the ones that voted with Leo. Up next,
Team Leo. We're going to get T-shirts made now.
The marijuana business is booming in the Rockies. Colorado just released tax figures for marijuana and alcohol taxes, and the results have the state's bank account getting higher than ever before. See that play on words there? Colorado collected $70 million in tax revenue from the legal sale of marijuana, compared to $42 million in taxes from alcohol sales last year. The state was so pleased with its haul that it declared a marijuana tax holiday so that smokers could enjoy one tax-free day at the dispensaries. So up or down, should more states follow Colorado's lead? Stephen Cruiser.
I have some political principles left, even though they've been worn thin over the last few years. And as a hardcore conservative, I don't care how it ends up helping you in the end, I cannot ever applaud tax revenue, okay? So I'm gonna say no. I mean, to me, you get more tax revenue, you get more politicians misspending it, so more tax revenue doesn't automatically equal good with me. So I'm on that basis alone, I'm going no.
Leo?
Way up. Cruiser, unfortunately, is wrong. Look, tax revenues are good if they're needed, and there are 4 things that the state is obligated to do: safety, health, morals, and the interest of the general welfare. Those are interests that the state are obligated to fulfill. You need revenue for that. Education, safety, health. Come on.
Prediction: if more states follow Colorado's lead, Colorado's revenues are going to go down because so many people are traveling there to buy it.
Yeah.
I agree. No question about it.
Yeah.
No question about it.
All right, moving on to our final topic. The nanny who's almost perfect in every possible way will soon be returning to the big screen. Last week, Disney announced that it would be starting production on a sequel to the Academy Award-winning film. Rob Marshall, director of Chicago and Into the Woods, is slated to direct. Disney has plenty of source material to pull from, as the original movie was based off a series of children's book by P.L. Travers. The new film will supposedly take place 2 decades after the events depicted in the original film Mary Poppins. It's reported that Mark Scheiman and Scott Whitman, who curated the soundtracks for Hairspray and Smash, will be writing and composing original songs for the sequel. Early speculation has Anne Hathaway as the fan favorite to play Mary Poppins, of course, originally depicted by Julie Andrews in the original. What do you think?
I want Katy Perry
Katy Perry.
to play Mary Poppins. Katy Perry. Cruiser.
I think Leo has his mind on a spoonful of sugar.
No, emphatically no. Go home, Hollywood. You're absolutely hammered and out of ideas right now. Stop with the reboots. Mary Poppins is Julie Andrews, okay? Julie Andrews is Mary. I believe that Julie Andrews probably could fly with an umbrella when she was in her 30s and 40s still. I mean, one of the first movie crushes I had when I was a kid was Julie Andrews. This is just sacred ground they're treading on now. No, and no.
He's
Come
a
up with a
purist.
new
It's
idea.
like he's talking about the designated hitter here.
I agree. No, look, remakes are done. They're always done. This is a sequel, so I see nothing wrong with it. There's no attack on the original.
How about this, though? How about the sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? That was a disaster.
That was horrible.
Yeah.
He looked like Michael Jackson.
If they took one of the greatest movies ever and then they tried to turn it into a dark Tim Burton-y thing, and it was an awful dark Tim Burton-y thing, and then Johnny Depp was quirky, because that's what he does. He's quirky.
That's going to do it for today's show. Leave your comments in the comment section below. And don't forget to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/PJTV. I'm John Phillips for Stephen Cruiser and Leo Terrell. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great weekend.